Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Steve Moran Select. Steve Moran from Best Bets jumps in to join us. We're previewing AAMI Victoria Derby Day. Steve, one of my favourite days on the card.
Fantastic day, Sean. 4 Group 1s, of course, the first 4 of 8 for the week at Flemington. Weather's going to be a factor, but it's a fantastic program. We've got last year's Horse of the Year, Typhoon Tracy, chasing back-to-back wins in the mire, and the horse who will almost certainly, even at this early stage, be this year's Horse of the Year, and so you think, backing up from the Cox Plate into the McKinnon. It's going to be an intriguing day.
All right, well, the most intriguing thing is what's going to happen with the skies. We do our preview as we near the weekend under bright sunshine, but that may not be the case on Saturday. How do we assess our form?
Well, it makes it tricky in quite a few of the races. In some, I don't think it's a huge factor. It won't alter the complexion of a lot of races, but it depends on the volume of rain. At this stage, the track would be good or very close to it. We can't second guess the weather gods. Let's hope it's not too hellish, but there will be a couple of horses at odds who will suddenly come into calculations, and we'll touch on those as we go through the program.
Alrighty, let's get into it. We're going to preview our 4 Group 1s. The big one of the day is the Derby, of course, for the 3-year-olds. Pretty exposed form, as we always expect this, through the Norman Robinson and the AAMI Vars. Which way are you leaning?
I'm leaning to the Vars. Rekindle interest. He was so good last week, running quicker time than the Cox Plate winner, which is all about the tempo of the race, of course. But it's interesting, in recent years, 3 other horses have done that in the Vars, and the form has held up brilliantly around them. Efficient ran quicker time. He stepped out in probably the best Derby win we've seen for a long, long time. Kempinski and Elstrom quinelled the Vars in faster time. They quinelled the Derby. Hubagotchi might have got beaten in the Derby, but he proved a great horse. And I think rekindled interest, after promising so much, had to stand up and be counted last week, and he was. And he won the race decisively, and I think he might be able to go on with it.
Alrighty, so rekindled interest, your tip in the Derby. We've got your tips up on screen there at the moment. Let's get across to the McKinnon. All about So You Think. Does he just continue this winning streak?
Well, you would think so. The only query for me this week might be whether they change the tactics a little. We haven't heard any official announcement regarding that at this stage, but given that he's leading into the Cup, they might opt, particularly from the wide gate, to ride him a little more conservatively. He's probably still too good. I think that if Ginga Dude was left alone in front, if Desperado and So You Think were ridden more conservatively, he could be a little fly in the ointment. The rain would certainly bring Desperado right back into calculations again, as happened in the Caulfield Cup. And Shootout was pretty good in the Cox Plate, and there's good precedence for horses running like he did in the Cox Plate, backing up in the McKinnon and winning it. In fact, it's happened 6 times in the past 10 years. Not to mention, of course, the Melbourne Cup winner, shocking track condition, irrelevant for him. He seems to go in all ground. Fantastic record here at Flemington, beaten only once. And so I think it's a great McKinnon. I think So You Think will probably win again, but I'm not convinced it's necessarily a walk in the park.
Okay, well, that's the McKinnon. Let's get across to the third of our Group 1s. Why don't we have a look at the Coolmore now for the 3-year-olds up the straight here. You get a bit of a leaning towards the fillies.
I do. I think it's the most competitive race on the program. I think any one of 6 or 7 could win it. Obviously, the form's terrific around the likes of Star Witness and buffering the males. Presto resuming, unbeaten first up. General Truce will be competitive. Mark Kavanagh throws the blinkers on Shrapnel, who's the emerging horse. But I like the fillies a little bit. Solar Charge, I think, from gate 1 might be able to lead. Buffering's probably the only one who could match it at all for early pace with Solar Charge. Her win at Caulfield was fantastic. Ran the first half in better than 34 and kept running, and I think she might be a bit of value. And the saver is probably the other filly, Sistine Angel, who will be the complete opposite, sitting out the back and coming to the middle of the track. So I thought there was value around the fillies, but I wouldn't talk anyone out of anything in this race. It's, as I mentioned, there's 6 or 7 legitimate winning hopes as far as I'm concerned.
Alrighty, and the last of our Group 1s, of course, is the Maya Classic for the mares and the fillies up the 1,600 metre trip here. We see Typhoon Tracy come back. Has she got enough zip to go back-to-back? And Yosei, how does the 3-year-old filly handle the mares?
Well, I think she'll be competitive, the filly, Yosei, but you look at Typhoon Tracy winning this race last year by a widening 5 lengths against some very much in-form mares at the time, Lady Lynette and Hot Danish and co. We saw her in the Turnbull. She didn't run the 2000 as far as I can see, but she was still breathing down the neck of the likes of Shocking and Shootout and Zipping. I think she's simply too good for her own gender. The drier the track, the better thing that she is. I think, good thing, she's good track, she's unbeatable. Dead to slow, She's nearly a good thing. Slow to heavy, not so sure. But I think she's a cut above these other mares.
All right, and Yosei, you just mentioned quickly.
Well, Alingi ran very well in this race. She's going to get a lovely run. She can handle the soft. She's got a little hope. If the rain comes, I think Culminate gets promoted pretty rapidly in the ratings. If the rain stays away, you're probably looking at the likes of Palacio de Crystal and Believe and Achieve as some sort of threat to Typhoon Tracy. But I think she's just too good for them.
All righty, what about your best bets?
Best bets, I'm going to go very early in the day in race 1, number 1, Skilled. Track condition, not a big factor with him. He'll have first use of the ground in any case. Has the weight advantage on Mr. Chard and the others from the Caulfield race. He'd missed a run at Flemington in between. I think he's nearly a good thing, Skilled.
All right, each way?
Pretty keen on Shamrocker in the Wakeful. I've wanted to be on her all spring. She was good in the Manifold. I think she'll be very hard to beat here in the Wakeful, and I think you just back up again on Thursday, assuming she runs reasonably well, of course. I'm happy to back her each way on Saturday.
Yeah, they've got an outstanding record. It is the definitive guide for the Crown Oaks. What about your best roughie?
Well, there's a few roughies on the program, Sean. There was one that did intrigue me that'll probably be about 80 to 1. Race 3, number 14, Evidentia, but needs a dry track, so it's probably out the window. I think we might stay with Descarado. We named him the best roughie in the Caulfield Cup, and if the rain does come, I think you're probably looking at horses like Descarado, Purple, Culminate, Shell Scrape, as the horses who will be significantly shorter and have significantly better chances than as we stand here in the sun right here and now. Let's hope we're standing in the sun on Saturday afternoon.
Alrighty, well that's been this week's edition of Steve Moran Selects. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Sean. Look forward to seeing you at Flemington on Saturday.
Yes, we'll certainly be there, and we look forward to seeing you there as well. And of course you can find all of Steve's selections in this week's edition of Best Bets. You pick it up at your nearest news agency. Good punting.